we're not too far behind. I should have told you guys this before we started. So the first half of today is all like big picture, right? All the stuff that we're talking about, objections and value and all that stuff. Second half, hearing about when we get back, we'll have one more short section. Then we're going to get into process, right? Literally step by step, what I do, what I say, the tools that I use from the time that I leave the warehouse to the time I leave the customer's home. So I'm gonna literally walk you through everything from discovery to presenting to closing to all that stuff. So that's kind of the setup for the day. I want to take my time through this, eat some chicken, and so this is the sales 101 stuff, right? This is if you were thinking about getting into sales, and this is like one of the first classes that you would ever take. This is as basic as it gets, but it is amazing how much even seasoned veterans of the chimney industry mess up the basics of sales. And so there's three terms that you should know, right? Features, advantages, and benefits. And they go into this a little bit in spin selling too. So does anybody know what a feature is? I know we're all eating, so I'm gonna catch people with their mouths full, but what's a feature? If I was buying a car, what would be a feature on a car?
Bluetooth radio.
Radio.
Yeah.
What's that? Sunroof.
Yeah.
Bluetooth. Cast iron, alloy, whatever, right? Backup camera. Features are descriptors. Bless you. There's two more coming. No? They're descriptors. They describe a product, right? So it does this thing. So like, what would a feature of a stove be?
Gives you heat.
Well, that's a benefit, right? Like what feature
Catalytic combustor.
has a catalytic combustor?
It's enamel.
It's enamel. It's cast iron. It's ceramic glass. It's 650 square feet. It's 45,000 BTUs, right? These are typically brochure specs, right? An advantage is a comparison between two features, right? This one has 45,000 BTUs. This one has 55,000 BTUs, right? This one's more. So you're just basically comparing statistics, stats, descriptions. So what's fascinating, they did this huge study in spin selling where basically I think it's like 15,000 sales calls they looked at. And the people that spoke in terms of features and advantages had way more objections and had way less closing. So benefits are just simply how a feature benefits or helps a customer, right? So you mentioned heat. Well, this has 55,000 BTUs. What does that mean? Well, that is going to make sure that you have enough heat to take care of this room, right? So you give the feature, but you describe the benefit. So I always use this little example. If I'm a car salesman and you come on my lot and I'm like, bro, let's see you looking at this car here, man, this thing's preloaded. It's got the alloy wheels, got the Bluetooth, got the backup camera, got the sunroof, got the leather seats. In the winter, it's got the heated seats, and the summer, it's got the cold seats. It's got, all these, the doors come off. It's got that extra room in the back. Go through all these kind of things. As I'm going through all of these features, as a customer, what do you hear?
Price is going up.
Yeah, it's a lot of things going on. Like, how much is all of that costing me, right? And then, is there anything else that went through anybody's head besides price?
He's kind of thinking, how does this benefit me?
Yeah. I'm not interested.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if I need all exactly. Half that, man. I can't imagine a time I would need my ass to be cold. Right? Well, how much am I paying for that? Can you give me the model that doesn't have the cold ass option? Because that would be sweet. Like, how much less is that? Right? So, and we make this mistake all the time as salespeople. We try to talk about how great our thing is and all this stuff that it does. And man, this one's 55,000 BTUs. It's got the ceramic glass. It's got the air wash. It's got this. And all the customer is hearing is more money, more money, more money. And I don't know what those words mean. And I don't even know if I need that. right? So the only point that I want to really make, there's a lot of stuff on here about what all these things are, but the only point I really want to make is that, guys, and I would write this down so you don't forget it, to never ever give a feature to a customer unless you immediately follow it up with a benefit. Otherwise, you are going to unintentionally start creating your two biggest objections in the industry, which is need and price. Right? Your two biggest objections are price and need, and most of the time they are self-inflicted because you are talking your yapper off about how great your widget is. And they're like, I don't want the widget, I want heat. I don't want the widget, I want the water to stop. I don't want the widget, I want whatever. Stop my smoke, stop the smell, stop the algae, whatever it is, right? So an example of this would be if you were in discovery and you're like, so you don't use the fireplace? No. Well, we talked about this earlier. I was like, well, what about it did you not like? Well, it had smoked, and it's just, I'm getting older. It's getting harder and harder to cut wood and make sure it's seasoned and bring it in the house. Last time I brought a bunch of spiders in, they had babies. I'm just over it. Well, tell me, what if you didn't have to deal with any of that, right? What if you could? Well, I mean, I guess if it put off heat, that would be one thing. Definitely the remote thing. I didn't have to deal with wood. That would be cool. But my concern is, we lose power here a lot. So I would, I want to make sure that it worked if we lost power. And but outside of that, I guess. So if I am now selling that person a gas insert, the only thing I'm talking about is heat, backup battery power, and see the glass and the ease of use with not only a remote, but I can set a thermostat in the room to make this fireplace kick on and off anytime you want it to when it gets below a certain temperature, right? It may do 10 other things, but if I were to describe those 10 other things, it's going to feel like overkill to that guy, or I may be spending more than what I could spend if I had something else that just gave me those 3 or 4 things. Does this make sense? So just the general sales rule, anything that you do in life, is kind of like have you ever seen the movie Moneyball? With
Charlie Sheen?
Who?
Is it Charlie Sheen?
No, it's Brad Pitt and Jonah.
Oh, I know who you're talking
Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
There's like this scene in the movie, like where they're trying to make this trade, and they're talking to the manager and all. He's like, so we got a deal, and he's like, yeah, and the guy's like, no, what other? And he hangs up on him. And he's like, man, I think he had something else to say. He's like, when you get the answer you want, stop talking. It's that kind of thing. Have you ever almost talked yourself out of a sale? You keep like, they're like, all right, well, it sounds good, and then you're like, well, and keep in mind, you keep going on. Oh, wait, well, hang on, let me, it's like, when you got it, stop, right? So only talk about things that are in terms of their interest. Back to Carnegie, back to benefits and value driven, right? If you think it's the coolest feature in the world, like I think AirWash is the coolest feature in the world. Like I think it's absolutely amazing that all the old stoves used to have black soot all over the glass, and that they figured out a way to recirculate the smoke in a fireplace to actually self-clean the glass and make it more efficient, so we don't produce black smoke and it doesn't have the out. I think that's cool as shit. You don't have to clean your glass anymore. But if they don't care about that, now if they tell me that one of the things that we really liked about the fireplace is we really enjoyed the view of the fire. We had all of that. All of a sudden, the AirWash is the coolest thing ever. You never have to worry about that fire view being blocked, right? But talk in terms of their interest. So, all right, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to eat a piece of chicken or two, and we'll talk about this. Then we'll take a break. We all right? All right. So I need everyone's attention on this one. This is the hardest concept that I teach. And I try to do it before lunch because usually you start having the carbs or something hit you and you're all drowsy after lunch. So this is direct plagiarism from spin selling. It's just so powerful when you understand it. So there's basically 2 types of needs that customers have, right? We have all these primal needs, we have all these kind of different things, but But when you define them from a psychological standpoint, we have what's called implied or implicit needs, and then we have what's called explicit needs. You don't have to know what those all mean. The words don't matter, but just know that there's two different types of needs. And people tend to only spend money to solve problems when their needs are explicit, okay? Again, we don't have to worry about what they mean. We have implied or implicit needs, we have explicit needs. People tend to spend money when their needs are explicit. So if we were trying to get to a certain need level, which need level would we try to get to? Explicit, right? So the goal of the sales process is to get the customer's needs to explicit before we propose. And so to understand what that looks like, so people buy typically on two main emotions, right? They will either buy on literally on emotion, logic or fear or emotion, right? These are kind of the things that drive. I never want my customer buying on emotion. Never. I never want them buying on fear. I never want them buying on, you know, oh my God, that fireplace goes right through your son's bedroom, and you know, it's like, what a terrible parent, you know, like, you know, it's like none of that, right? It needs to be, I understand the problem, I'm making a logical decision because I understand by not doing this is what's going to continue to happen. And so how much you guys charge for a sweep and inspection right now? $300. Okay, so I'm your customer. Miss Jones is your customer. Miss Jones called up to your office and said, hey, I have a fireplace, I need to get it swept. And your office is like, oh, okay, great, thanks for calling, doing all this stuff, you know, you're in our service area. And then, so is there anything going on with your fireplace? Any issues you're having? Like, no, it works great. Just need to get it swept. It's been a little while, and just want to make sure it's all good for next year or this year, whatever. I'm like, okay, great, we'll get them out there. At that point in time, how much money is Miss Jones expecting to spend? $300. Right? $300. She's so sweet, she already wrote the check for you. Right? Isn't that the worst? Like, I got a check on the counter for you. Well, rewrite it, it's gonna be a lot more.
Add a one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So at that point in time, she's planning on spending $300. Now, you pull up to little sweet Miss Jones's house, and what does every chimney sweep do when they pull up to a house? What's the first thing you do when you get out of your truck? Look at the damn chimney.
Yeah.
Every time you're like, oh man, the roof's gonna suck. Oh my God, there's no cap. That's a couple small bricks. Oh, hey, look, there's some bricks on the roof. I think that flashing is not even cut in. And like all of a sudden, you're walking to the door and you've already got $5,000 in your head, and there's little Miss 300 answering the door. Then everything's fine, right? If you were to, at that point in time, did you know you got bricks on your roof? There's not a cap up there. Your flashing's pulling up. Shut the door in your face so you have a good day. In my mind, everything's great, right? Like I used this 2 days ago. Everything's fine, right? So I know this is really hard to read, it's blurry because it was a scan, but at the top left, it says problems, difficulties, and dissatisfactions, right? The bottom left, it says implied needs. At the top right, it says strong wants or desires. At the bottom right, it says explicit needs. So then you got these little boxes in the middle, and the one on the left says it's almost perfect, right? In Miss Jones's world, her fireplace is almost perfect. And if you were to try to propose a bunch of stuff to her, especially $5,000 worth of work, when she's expecting to spend $300, there's zero chance of success, right? There's just no chance that's going to be successful. So this is like to put yourself into a situation. How many times do you ever go do real estate transactions or where there's not even anybody there, right? You don't have anybody to talk to, and maybe it's a client or a tenant or renter situation, and in their mind, everything is fine. You're just there to sweep it, inspect it, and then you send them a big report that they need $5,000 worth of work. There's zero chance of success there. You understand that when their expectation is here, and then you tell them, no, you really have all this stuff going on and you need to spend this, and you don't take the time to walk them through that need scale, there's almost 0% chance of success there, right? So the next stage is, so we go in, Miss Jones, you know, how's everything going? Oh, it's great. Just used the fireplace 2 or 3 days ago. We just need to get it swept up. So, you know, we're good to go. Wanted to get you in before busy season, blah, 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 right? So, Miss Jones, everything's working fine? Yes, ma'am. Now, Miss Jones, I noticed that looks like there's a little bit of black there above the top of your fireplace there. You ever have any kind of smoke roll back, any kind of smells issues like that? No, you know, maybe once in a while when we start the fire, sometimes, you know, I can just open this window right here and, you know, it drafts off, and once it's going, man, it's going, right? It's a problem, but I can live with it, right? At that point, yeah, it's not perfect, but, you know, I can open my window and it's fine. So now I'm between, if I were to give her an $8,000 repair versus opening the window, what's she gonna choose?
Opening the window.
Open the damn window, right? So if I were to propose at that point, I've almost got zero chance, right? So we start going through, and then let's say we start scanning, and you know, we get into things, and you know, typically, hey, you know, smoke is not supposed to ever do that. We're going to check the math on it. We're going to check the interior, kind of go through all that. Oh, wow, okay, I didn't know it could be, you know, a bigger problem. All those are implied or implicit needs, right? If you were to sit down or to email a proposal or to try to get any kind of significant money while the needs are implicit, your odds of closing are very, very low. And people unfortunately do this all the time. This is what happens when you email proposals. Right, you're basically saying, here's all the stuff I found. I know you didn't know about it, or whatever the case may be, but you know, here's what's going on. Here's how much money you need to spend, and they're like, you're crazy, right? So, our goal is to get them to explicit. Our goal is to get them to want to take action, to want to resolve it. How would we ever know when our customers' needs get to explicit? How do you think we would ever determine that their needs are now explicit?
Do you know somebody that can fix this?
Yeah.
Who do I call?
So what is that? What are you describing?
I guess you said an explicit need?
Yeah, well, buying questions.
Oh, buying.
Yeah. So you're scanning the chimney. We're talking about the smoke chair. Oh my God! Like, how much does that cost? How do you do that? How do you even get in there? You all do that work? Well, how long does that take? Is that a big job? Is that a little job? All of a sudden, I am now getting an interest. Right? It's a bigger problem than they realize. They're asking questions about wanting to resolve. Doesn't mean that I'm going to close it. It means I'm at a point where I can at least make a presentation. Right? They're interested in solving the problem. If they're interested in solving the problem, excuse me. Then I have a chance, right? And now the rest of my process is spent raising that number in the customer's head. Right? Before I give my number, I got to get their number higher than my number. But if they don't even care about it, then I can raise this value all day long. Hey, $20 beer in the grocery store, and they're going to be like, just go screw yourself, right? So I have to find the interest, I have to get the buying questions, and then I start talking about what do they want this to be, right? Once I get them to start telling me what they want this to be, they're now being put into a buying position versus me a selling position, then I can move forward with recommendations. Does that make sense? All right. Let's take this in here. Got one more little section. You all good for about 10 more minutes? Let's do 10 more minutes, then we'll take a break, and we'll be officially at the halfway mark. So that'll be perfect for when we normally do lunch. So I've talked about this for 10 years, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. So how many products do you guys think you sell?
Retail wise or service wise?
All together. Like how many items you think are in QuickBooks or in Service Type?
A lot.
100,
Yeah.
150. There's probably, I bet there's, maybe they're not all in there, but there's probably 1,000 times time you figure out all the
Thousands.
couplers and
The prices.
increasers and the, you know, all the crap that goes into it, right? There's thousands of things. Now, on the service side, there's really only two things that you guys really sell. If you take everything you sell on the service side, they all break down into two categories. Do you know what the two categories are?
Exterior and interior.
That is basically it, but be more specific. So interior what?
We contain the products of combustion. We keep water from coming into the house.
That's it. We do two, like if someone were to ask you what do, you could sum it up in basically these two things. You say, basically I help people fix and prevent water damage and make sure that that they are able to vent their fireplace or appliance properly. Right? Would you agree that sums up everything outside of the retail side? Everything that you do is either fixing or preventing water damage or making sure that people are able to vent properly, right? So what is really, really cool and what makes this so, I don't want to use the word easy, but what makes this manageable is, you know, people don't buy what you sell, they buy what's going to happen if they don't buy what you sell. So if you can get amazing, I mean amazing, at making sure people understand the impact of not venting properly or not fixing or preventing water damage, you can sell everything in your company. Right? It's pretty damn cool when you think about it. It doesn't matter to me if I'm selling a cap, a crown, a tuck point, a rebuild, a flashing, a water repellent. It's all the same thing. I'm fixing or preventing water damage, right? What happens if I don't fix or prevent water damage, right? All those things that I was challenging you guys. Water gets in, this happens, and I keep going until I find a point that that customer cares, and then I resolve it, right? Same thing with venting. If I've been using this for 30 years, I don't care about it. It doesn't matter what I talk about. There's nothing that I can say to get them to buy unless they care about venting properly. So I've got to get really, really good at making sure they understand all the reasons why we want to vent properly. Otherwise, I'm always going to fail on that proposal. So we're going to do a little exercise. Is I want you to get a piece of paper. If you've probably seen this before on my videos, but it's so important that we do this. This is the key to problem impact selling. So just get a little piece of paper, write down, leave some space between each of these. I want you to write a 1, a 2, 2.5, and 3. 1, 2, 2.5, and 3. Leave a little bit of space in between each one. I'll give you some stuff to write in there. Take another bite of the chicken. Second. Bless you. Okay. Number 1, write this down. What is it and what does it do? What is it and what does it do? Number 2, what happened to it? $2.5. The good news here is, the good news here is, and then number 3 is what happens if we leave this unattended? 1, what is it? What does it do? 2, what happened to it? 2.5, the good news is, and 3 is, this is what happens if we leave it unattended.
2.5 was one, I'm sorry.
The good news is.
Okay.
3 is, this is what happens if we leave it unattended. So this is something I created a long time ago called the Big 3. I added the good news is in there because I realized how important that was, but I refused to call it the Big 4 because I've been calling it the Big 3 for so long.
I wondered why it was 2.5.
Yeah. This is it. Like this has been the Big 3 for 10 years, so I can't. The Big 4 is just stupid. So, what is this piece of concrete or mortar at the top of this chimney? What is it?
Crown.
What does it do?
Prevents water from getting inside the chimney.
Okay. Anybody else describe that any different? Yeah. Number 1, like Kevin, let's say you weren't a chimney guy at all. Mr. Rogers, at the top of this chimney, this concrete, this mortar you see here is basically what we call a crown wash, a mortar wash. Basically, it's designed to hold all the bricks together at the top and act as the first line of keeping water from getting into the structure, because water is very detrimental to masonry. Right? So number one, what is it? What does it do? This allows you to stop using industry terms that customers don't understand. Corbelling, parging, all these things. When you use those kind of words, people don't always understand them, right? So this is what the thing is, this is what it does, right? Number two, what happened to it? Looks like we got some stuff going on. What happened here?
It's been exposed to a substantial amount of water.
Okay.
Because of it's sitting up there and it's broken down the ground.
Okay.
It was improperly constructed from the beginning
Yeah.
because they used mortar instead of cement.
Yep.
Somewhere along the lines, you had someone go up there and put a layover on it.
That's
You
right.
can notice that by some of the mortar flaking off. You can also see that there's darkened mortar joints down here, but water has infiltrated the top of it and started
Exactly
to cause
right.
damage.
That's exactly right. What happened to it? At the end of the day, this thing was improperly constructed. They didn't even use the right material. Now, these two little tiles you see at the top, that's the top of your chimney flue, right? That chimney flue, there's basically 2-foot sections of that going all the way down to your fireplace or to your furnace or whatever that's in there. When you're using your fireplace, what happens to things whenever you heat them up?
Expand.
They expand, right? And so proper construction of this would say around that tile, you should have a piece of foam going around the entire thing. We call that an expansion joint. Well, whoever constructed this left out that very important piece of the design, and the first time someone used this fireplace, that tile expanded, and either the tile's got to break or the crown's got to break. And in this case, the crown has broke. Someone tried to patch this with an improper material, but you can see that water is still getting in there. When water gets in there, it goes through the freezing and the thawing cycle, and when it freezes, that water expands, which makes these cracks get even bigger, right? What happened to it? It's your chance to be the expert, to build credibility, to build trust, that you know what you're talking about, right? If I fix this, this is not going to happen again, right? What is it? What does it do? What happened to it? Now, the good news is, right? All the damage that I am seeing right here appears to be isolated just to the top of this crown. As I look at your brickwork, seems to be pretty solid. Bricks look pretty good. Mortar looks pretty good. So, but if we were to leave this crown unattended, right, water's going to continue to get into the brick structure. Then I would then show a picture of that brick absorbing water, or that video of the brick absorbing water. It's absolutely insane. I use this line every single time. The thing that stands out to me from 12 years ago when I started doing chimneys, that still stands out to me today, is one brick can hold 1.5 cups of water. That's crazy. You've got 500 bricks up there. Think about how many cups of water that you have in there. And when that gets completely full and then it starts to freeze, then all of a sudden what's happening up here on your crown starts to happen to your bricks. At this point, we've caught it at a really good point. So all I have to do is take care of this crown at the top, and we're good to go, right? So what I am, again, they're not buying the crown. They're buying, not having to buy future masonry work by not buying the crown. That makes sense? Right? And there's always good news, guys. Right? Unless it's a ground up rebuild, there's always good news, right? You know, if it's tuck pointing, right? You got to tuck point the whole chimney. Good news is, Ms. Jones, the chimney is still structurally stable, right? I'm not to the point where I've got to start relaying bricks. I'm close, but at this point I can go through a process called tuck pointing, and then I would literally bring out my pictures right then, and I'll get to this later, of showing the guys in the mass and grinding mortar joints and tucking in new mortar. And basically I could just reform the bonds of this mortar, because I still have enough mortar in there to do that. If I get to the point where this goes through another season or two of freezing and thawing, and that little bit of mortar that's left in there ever disappears, and I have nothing to mortar to, then I'm gonna have no option but to take the chimney down to that point and then relay brick. So we've caught it at a point where we can still do maintenance versus full-on rebuild, which is great because you don't want to see those numbers, right? If I've got to replace 4 rows of brick, good news is all the damage appears to be isolated just to these 4 rows. It doesn't appear to have really gotten past that yet, right? That power word, right? So really what I need to do at this point is take this down to these 4 courses, bring it back up, and then, and then we won't have to worry about the rest of the chimney taking on water and having a much bigger bill down the road. Roof line up, Good news is that doesn't appear to have crossed the flashing yet. I'm not into the foundation of the structure. I don't see any water in the home yet, so pretty much this is to be a small job as it is, but this is all I need to do is take it down to the roof line, bring it back up. If we leave this unattended, then and we get below the flashing, we're talking an extremely different scope of work, right? The whole idea here is they're not buying what you're selling, they're buying what's gonna happen if you don't buy what you're selling. But you're adding in 1 and 2 to show that you're speaking on their terms and layman's language, and you know what caused the problems, and therefore you know how to fix the problems. So that's the big 3. 1, 2, 2.5, and 3. So anytime you find a problem, anytime you try to show a picture to a customer, you should be going through that process, right? So questions about any of this stuff so far? No? Okay. Let's take a break. I've got 12